In this section, we will look at a very important capability, exporting data. Once we've produced a workflow which generates an output of some kind, we may find ourselves in a position where we want to export the result set, potentially in different formats to accommodate different systems or software for onward consumption. The first export method that we'll look at is exporting data to Excel files, and we'll cover 3 common use cases which you may find yourself with. Firstly, we may want to simply export the entire result set to a single Excel tab. So first of all, I have a pre-designed workflow which takes the pet store monthly sales data, transposes it so it's in a long format, just as we like it, and then I perform a quick cleanse and rename some columns to bring us a dataset that looks like the following. Now let's see how we can export this dataset to a single file with a single tab. So here, what we can do is drag in an output tool from the In-Out tool palette. Within the configuration window, we can select the drop-down where it states Write to File or Database, and in this example, we're going to write to an Excel file. Now you can see from this list of files that we have a lot of choices, but the concept of exporting to different file types is very similar. So let's select Microsoft Excel. When we select Excel, we need to give the Excel file that we're about to create a name. So for this example, I will call it Result1 and then hit Save. You should then be presented with a pop-up which asks you to enter the worksheet name, so the name of the tab when it lands in Excel. So let's call this tab Pet Data to make it clear to see. When we run the workflow, you can see the workflow runs successfully. And if I go to the directory where we saved the file, we have a new file called Result1, which we can now open and then perform any analytics that we want within this Excel file. We can distribute the Excel file in email to your recipients of choice. Now notice here that if I try to run the workflow again, we run into an error which states that the sheet already exists. This is because in the configuration window, we have set the output options to be Create New Sheet, but because it exists, we run into this error. To avoid this message, we can either save the file with a new name, or if we want to overwrite the previous file, we can change this selection to Overwrite Sheet (drop). When we now try to run again, we get a successful export, which has overwritten the previous version. Now let's take this one step further. Let's suppose that we want to export our results to a single Excel file, but this time we want to separate our results into different tabs with labels that make it easy to observe what dataset is which. Now let's quickly look at the result set to see how we can split this data. Let's suppose that we want all of our data in one Excel file, but for each city that exists in the city column, we want the results to be in a separate tab, with the tab name equal to the city name. This is so when we circulate the sales data to each city, they can easily identify the tab they need to look into for their data. In order to do this, we can perform a dynamic output by combining the use of a formula tool with the output tool. So let's go through the process. Firstly, we need to create a new field using the formula tool so that we can assign each record with a place to be exported to. So we'll create a field called File Path, and we will set this equal to the name of the path that we want the Excel files to be placed in. So in this example, I will place the result in my C drive, put a colon, backslash, then users, backslash, then my username, backslash, then Alteryx, backslash, then Excel outputs. I will then end with a backslash. I can then concatenate a file name, so we can put plus and then enter the field name city. We can then put a plus and end with .xlsx. So at this point, each row in our final result set will have a new record with a file path. This will be used to tell Alteryx to export the result to this file. To provide the tab name, we will also need to provide this, which can be done by placing a pipe symbol after the XLSX, which can usually be found to the left of the Z character on your keyboard, and then we can put plus and then the field city. Seeing as the file itself will be labelled with the city name, we don't need to do this, but it makes it look cleaner. Okay, so once we've done this, we need to make a couple of tweaks in our output tool. So what we first need to do is change the output options to overwrite sheet brackets drop. We have to then select the option which states take file / table name from field. You can probably see where this is going. We now need to tell Alteryx the file path that we want the results to be sent to. And seeing as we have a new column which states this information, we can select the option from the drop-down which states change entire file path, and then provide the field in which the file path resides, which in our case is the new field we created called file path. So what Alteryx will do is take the file path name from this column and send each record to the respective location. If we don't want the file path to be in our output, we can deselect the box which says keep field in output. When we now run the workflow, we can see that the files are produced accordingly. And if we go across to the folder in which I saved these in, we get a new file for each city. And if I go into one of the files, notice here that it only contains the data for the city as it's based on the field we created in the formula tool. A very nice way of being able to dynamically slice parts of your results into different files. Now finally, I just want to show you one more example, which not only splits the results into different files, but also splits the results into different tabs. So let's suppose that in each file that is currently based on city, we want a separate tab for each month name. We can simply do this by changing the formula tool to end in month. This way, the file path name will change with a tab name based on month. And if we run the workflow, you will see that it takes a little longer to create all the files. In fact, there will be close to 100 files, if not more, that will be created. But when it finishes running, we can go into one of the files and we can now see that our result set is not only split by city, but we now have it nicely organized into different tabs, one result set for each month. So here are a few examples of exporting data into Excel. A very popular export option as many people are familiar with Excel and can perform bespoke ad hoc analytics on it. Play around with a couple of other options to make sure that you're comfortable using them. The final thing I want to mention is that the Alteryx community is a great place to go if you ever get stuck with particular nuanced export requirements. It's very rare that I go to the Alteryx community to find an answer and walk away disappointed. So be sure to check out the community if you require an answer to an Excel export question.